Hey everyone, Untitled Chapter 525 here, and welcome to the first of many reviews that I have planned for summer 2022, starting with none other than Bachmann's latest release, Narrow Gauge Peter Sam. So what can I say? Peter Sam is a beautiful, beautiful model, and as we all know, a stunning character in many regards. And of course we will begin with a brief bio on him, as I always do, specifically the television series bio. As you know, on Untitled Chapter 525, I've always been inspired primarily by the television series, specifically the model era, and as a result, we will talk specifically about that. So, Peter Sam was first seen in the episode Grandpuff with the name Stewart, which was his initial name on the Minnesota Railway before going to the Skarloey Railway, and then changing his name to Peter Sam. And back in those days, he was very mischievous, along with Falcon, who then became Sir Handel. And but nevertheless, a hard worker and eager to help. And then throughout the series, he's had many arcs and changes. One of his most notable changes was his funnel. As we all know, in the season 4 episode Special Funnel on the Skarloey Railway, his original funnel was wobbly due to his accident with cars in the episode Trucks, aka Rusty Helps Peter Sam, and thus he received this new Giesel funnel. Now, what's interesting, though, is that in the television series, at least in the model era, Peter Sam first received this stovepipe funnel, or, it's more of a boxy shape, and which I remember really appealed to me when I was a kid. But I was surprised to know later, when I was a teenager, that that's actually incorrect. And then, as a matter of fact, the correct shape is more of like this oval shape Giesel funnel, as shown in the model, the real-life basis Edward Thomas. So that's very interesting. And as far as character arcs, Peter Sam has also had a very close relationship with the Refreshment Lady, as we all know in the famous episode Peter Sam and the Refreshment Lady, one of my favorite episodes from Season 4, as it showcases Lakeside, which has to be one of my favorite sets of the entire Thomas television series because of how beautiful it is. But we then see later in Season 7, he comes across an old abandoned coach that he then restores, or the Fat Controller then restores into the Refreshment Lady's tea shop, as he wants to have a mobile coach for in order to sell her refreshments. And it's just really nice to see that 3 seasons after Season 4, like that the television series crew thought about Peter Sam and the Refreshment Lady, like arcs like that, or just character development like that. That just shows that they really cared at the time, about those little things that really made a big difference, and what made Thomas such a great show. And then of course Peter Sam has been seen in almost every single model series from season 4 till season 12, apart from season 8, which was the first hit era season that they did not utilize narrow gauge engines or models. But then in the CGI series, in Blue Mountain Mystery and forward, the narrow gauge engines came back, and Peter Sam, of course, was one of them. Another thing I really wanted to briefly touch upon is that Peter Sam's personality, for the most part, has remained relatively consistent. Of course, we all know in the late model series, I don't know what happened, but some of the characters seemed to have a midlife crisis, while others had, a very interesting arcs overall. You look at Skarloey, for instance. It seemed like he had a midlife crisis when he went from a very wise engine in Season 4 to all of a sudden like this very childish engine in Season 9, and then back to his wise self in Season Blue Mountain Mystery onwards. And they really tried to make that notable by giving him that very deep voice, which, in my personal opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of that voice. To me, Skarloey's voice should not be that low. It should definitely have more of a wise tone to it, but anyways, I'm getting sidetracked, especially my opinions on voices. Anyways, but Peter Sam, on the other hand, has remained relatively consistent, unlike characters like Skarloey or Sir Handel, and that's just really nice to see. Very cheerful, hardworking, and always eager to help. Good-natured character. Yeah, but as we're now after 4 minutes into the review, let's jump right into the Bachmann model. So as we know, Bachmann announced Peter Sam along with Daisy and some pieces of rolling stock in summer of 2019, which came as a huge surprise to all of us. I still remember that day. I was just, happened to look up the forum, and all of a sudden I see that announcement. At first I think it's like some sort of joke, because like I just couldn't believe that they were actually announcing something that phenomenal in the summertime. But sure enough, it was legit, and yeah, Daisy and Peter Sam were coming. So yeah, I mean, of course, COVID then hit, the pandemic, which we're still going through to this day, and so production on Peter Sam was definitely delayed to some extent, which is why we didn't see him released until 2022. When initially I think the plan was to have him released in 2020, but after having this model, let me just say the wait was well worth it, and I have to admit he probably, out of all the narrow gauge engines that have been released so far, is probably the best one for several reasons. So let's jump right into the model itself. So as always, as all of the narrow gauge engines are, he is die-cast construction, so he definitely has weight to him, rather than just being, the plastic, like most of the HO engines are. The wheelbase, I remember Doug Blaine from Bachmann stating in Thomas Tuesday that the wheelbase is extremely small, and, on camera you can never really tell, but believe me, when you see this in person, he definitely wasn't lying. As a matter of fact, I have Scarloey right here, and, some people were wondering, is Peter Sam's wheels smaller? And sure enough, they are. So I don't know if you can try to get that as close to the camera as possible. But yeah, Peter Sam's wheels are in fact slightly smaller than Scarloey's. And you'll see that they are closer together as well. I'm going to try to line up the front wheels. Yeah, so you'll see the front wheels are lined up there. And then, yeah, Scarloey's back, or middle wheel rather, is further back. So that just shows you then, if you don't have Peter Sam yet, but you do have Scarloey, just how small Peter Sam's wheelbase is. Yeah. The face I'm not really a fan of, because it's based on the CGI series, unfortunately, but, like most things nowadays. But what I will say, it is a very accurate representation of the character from, those seasons of the show. But most likely at some point I will be getting, season 4 or model series 3D printed faces that I'll take off, just because, that's the look I'm used to, and I always found the model series faces to be more interesting to look at, because they're more well-defined, expressive, and aren't as flushed out as the CGI faces, if that makes sense. And yeah, going back to the funnel, that's beautifully sculpted, as you can see. They got the font right on Peter Sam and number 4. The shade of green is really nice too. On my camera, it looks a little lighter than it actually is in person, but I think they got the green perfectly right. And I think this was also specified on Thomas Tuesday, but this back wheel is also powered. So in other words, this doesn't just free roll. It does have pickups, not just pickups, but also it's just powered altogether. So that is, again, just phenomenal detailing on Bachmann's part. He does have the black running board, as shown in the CGI model, which, I'm actually okay with that. That doesn't bother me too much. I am used to the green running board, but I dig the black. I'm okay with it. The separately fitted whistle is also an extremely nice feature, as well as the tail lamp in the back, which is also separately fitted. But I think my favorite part has to be the open cab. It's always awesome to see open cabs with these models, because that just really shows that they really were thinking when it comes to attention to detail. And I think you can just very barely fit a crew in there. There is a little, because this back wheel has pickups, they had to block out part of that open cab, but in the middle there, but I think you could still squeeze in an HO figure on both sides if you'd like to. So that's going to be excellent for the upcoming HO figure packs. That'll hopefully be released either the end of this year or early next year. So, and then on the bottom it does state 2021. If you could see carefully. Yeah, I mean the model's so small it's kind of hard to make that out, but it does say Ghislaine Thomas Limited 2021, Bachmann made in China. And yeah, again, I'm so impressed with this model. The open windows too. I mean, this too. If I'm gonna be super picky, I do kind of wish they had that that lower window that's circular down here, just because again that was something I always liked to look at when I was a kid. But I mean, they were going off the CGI reference, and this is how he looks in CGI. So it is what it is, I suppose. But like I said, for what it is, based on the CGI render and everything else they did, it's probably their best narrow gauge model, and that really saying a lot when you consider the fact that Skarloey and Rheneas were also excellent models. And I have them right off to the side. I'm going to bring them forward, as well as Rusty, and we'll compare and contrast them all in terms of size. So, as we know, Rusty is based on Midlander, so he's, a little bit shorter than Peter Sam there. I know you can't really see him, but if you look there, Rusty is a little bit shorter. But it's not too bad, I'll be honest with you. Again, if you angle your camera in a certain way, like if in the future, in TSS Season 2, when I feature the narrow gauge engines in episodes, when you angle the camera a certain way, it's actually not too bad. But yeah, like I said, Peter Sam's perfect. If I were to just say flaws about Rusty, Rheneas, and Skarloey, Rusty, unfortunately, is a little too small for my liking. In the case of Rheneas, the funnel, again, this is CGI based, but the funnel is just way too skinny, in my opinion. But again, that's just me being super nitpicky. And then Skarloey's cylinders are slightly too big. But Peter Sam, on the other hand, his funnel is the perfect size, his cylinders are the perfect size, and he has all his wheels are powered. So it's remarkable, when you consider all those factors. I don't think there's anything wrong with this model. It's just personal preference, things like that back window and the face being CGI. But again, they were going off the CGI render, so that really is not a complaint I should have. It's just personal preference thing, which I could change, specifically the face. But yeah, that's basically everything to talk about with Peter Sam. Would I recommend him? Absolutely. What would I rank him? Easily a 10 out of 10. Like I said, he has to be one of Bachmann's best models, best narrow gauge model, and frankly, probably one of Bachmann's best models. Definitely in the top 5, no doubt. Top 5. But yeah, guys, this to me turns to Tractor 525, and here are some shots of Peter Sam running. Thanks for watching.